Greetings, dear listeners. Hope you're all doing well. As you know, I'm planning to make a book talk video about our book, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. But in order to make my video, I'm going to need the services of my local studio, which unfortunately is shut down until May the 10th at the earliest. As a result, I won't be able to produce my book talk before the middle of May or late May at the earliest. So in order to keep up your interest and to keep up the momentum, I'm going to present to you today my responses to 3 of the 5 questions I uploaded last week. 3 of the 5 questions from last week. And I'll put the 3 questions in the description for your convenience. So, with that being said, here's question number 1, and away we go. What do you think was the best scene in the novel? What do you think was the best scene in the novel? And here is my response. In some ways, I think the opening sections involving Eleanor are the most effective, as Eleanor's fantasy world is continually interrupted by reality through a series of unpleasant, or perhaps I should say unsettling encounters. The fight with her sister over the car, the old lady she knocks over, the people in the diner, Dudley, and we've all met Dudley now, haven't we? We've all met Dudley, and Mrs. Dudley. This creates a kind of disturbing, unsettling atmosphere that sort of contradicts Eleanor's fantasy world, and it sets up the first horrific view of the house. Now, when I read the book back in the mid-1990s, the only scene I could remember years later was the scene where Eleanor is followed down to the brook by an invisible entity and hears something invisible calling her name. I found that scene very spooky, and I find it spooky still. Now, the scene I like the least, and I'm kind of changing my opinion on this, the scene I liked the least was the first parlor/brandy scene. And a number of people have pointed out they sure drink a lot of brandy in this novel. I found the banter between the characters cringeworthy, particularly the comments by Eleanor. But then I realized that was the point of the whole scene. Eleanor joins in the banter out of her desperate need to belong, and she doesn't comprehend that all it really is silly talk. So throughout the whole book, fantasy gets smacked by reality. Eleanor's fantasy keeps getting smacked by hard reality. Now, as Paul Harvey would say, page 2. What frightened you most in the book? Question 2. What frightened you most in the book? And I wrote, I've only seen the 1963 film, The Haunting 1963, once, on a small black and white TV. And it was one of the few horror movies that actually scared me. The scene which frightened me was when the poltergeist was pounding on the bedroom door while Eleanor and Theodora cowered in fear. The same scene in the novel is well written, but it didn't have the same impact. No pun intended. Same impact as the film. This is also true of the scene where Eleanor hears the child crying while she thinks she's holding Theodora's hand. For me, it was much more effective in the film than in the novel. And perhaps this story works better as cinema than as a novel that you casually read. It has certainly been adapted many times. There's been 2 film versions and a Netflix series. So what do you think? Better cinema or book? Final question. Who or what is responsible for the ghostly activities in the book? Is it Hill House or Eleanor? And this is ambiguous. But what little criticism I've read suggests the House is responsible. And I've read very little criticism, as I want the ideas in this discussion to be our ideas, mine and yours. So I've read very little criticism. But the criticism tends to suggest the House is responsible. Is Eleanor responsible? She was involved in poltergeist phenomena as a child, so is she causing the poltergeist phenomena in the novel? The closing doors, the banging, the weird sounds at night, the cold spot, the crying. Is she causing it, or is the House exploiting her paranormal tendencies? Has it singled her out because of those tendencies, or because of her rather shaky mental conditions? One of the strengths of the novel is that you're never quite sure, or at least I wasn't, is Eleanor going nuts, or is this a case of spirit possession? She frequently alludes to her mother during these episodes. So, is it a case of madness caused by guilt? Because Eleanor blames herself for her mother's death? Is her final thought, as she's about to crash her car into the tree, "Why am I doing this?" Evidence that she has been possessed by Hill House to the point it has been directing her behavior and claims her? You tell me. You tell me. But read the first paragraph of the novel and the last paragraph again. Very interesting reading. So, please share your thoughts and opinions on these questions in the comments below, or you can email them to me directly at wsjxxx@gmail.com. That's wsjxxx@gmail.com. But if you send your thoughts and ideas as an email, please be sure to put Haunting of Hill House in the subject line so I know it's legitimate and not spam. As well, would you guys be interested in starting to read another book? I know ideally you would finish your first book before embarking on a second one, but this whole process is taking a very, very long time. Much longer than I intended, but that's due to circumstances beyond my control and beyond your control. Kind of like the wind. I'm now going to ask the lovely and talented camera crew to give us a panorama shot of the beautiful Pile of Bones Creek. The leaves aren't quite out on the trees yet, but it's still beautiful in an austere kind of way. And I wish you a happy Walpurgis night. Until midnight, cheers.